Hey Niners, we're here today to give you another video on Visual Studio 2010 and .NET Framework 4. Today we're chatting with Karen Liu. Karen, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what we're going to be showing off today.
Thanks, Jason. My name is Karen Liu, and I'm the lead program manager on the Visual C# and Visual Basic IDEs. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the new code-focused features that are in Dev 10. And what we mean by code focus is these are the features that are really designed around the kind of tasks that you'll be doing, regardless of what kind of application you're building. So regardless if you're doing web application or C# or Visual Basic, it's about giving you features that help you understand relationships in code, help you modify code quickly, help you write better code faster. So we'll take a look at a few of the features that you can play with today in the CTP.
Cool. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Okay. So the first feature I want to show you is some of the features that we're doing around understanding code, or giving you a deep insight into understanding the relationships between code. And I'll show you a piece that you'll see now in C# and VB. The first feature I want to look at is called the call hierarchy, or the call browser that you might be familiar with in C++. The call hierarchy is invoked from any reference. So the first thing you might do is, in the project I'm looking at, this is an editor extension that allows me to replace the margin, the right-hand side margin, with a set of markers. So in this particular method, render text, I wanted to get to that. I'll first use the feature that you might be familiar with, find all references, to grab each reference that this is invoked in. Let me go to this reference. And at this reference now, let me invoke the context menu and bring up the call hierarchy. Let me pull this up so you can see it a little bit better. In the render text, what I now have is I have two folders, one that allows me to see all the calls to render text. So right now this isn't particularly interesting because there's only one method to render text. I can also go ahead and see all the calls from render text. So although I'm at the reference point, I can see every call that actually calls this particular method. I can see a property that shows me the call sites and location here. I can see another clear method. I can go down to get scaling factor. I can find the render line. I can see the toInt32, and I can see all the location that calls. I can go ahead and jump into that location, and you'll see that this call actually makes a call here to render line.
Cool, so no more having to dig through hundreds of find all reference entries.
Right. Yeah, so the benefit of call hierarchy is before you would have had to dig through that entire reference list, but now I can actually just follow that trail to what I'm looking at. With the call hierarchy, it's important to remember that the way that we kind of look at performance in call hierarchy is when each folder is invoked, that's when the search is invoked. A few other things is that you can control the scoping of your call hierarchy, so your solution, your project document. You can also toggle on and off the panes that you're looking at if you want more screen real estate.
Cool.
So this fits really well in line with some of the things that you'll see new in the debugging kind of space where you can get the historical debugging, which I won't go into too much here. So let's take a look at another feature. So the first method we looked at was render line. The other thing you'll notice here is you'll notice I'm getting these design time errors in C#. So if you didn't have your hands on the 2008 SP1, what we've also done in Dev 10 is you'll see a really broad a broader sense of what you can get with design time errors in C#, which means that I'm actually going to get compile errors in design time now across my entire project or solution and above methods, which is a step beyond what we did in SP1. The next feature I want to show you is quick search. So in the past, you might have seen things like there's a find and replace, there's a quick find, quick replace, find and replace. These are pretty powerful search features, but they're not quite powerful enough. And the reason for that is they're not symbol-based. So if I'm looking for a particular thing, it's a fast way to find, for instance, the quick find window. It's a quick way to find an exact text match. But if I'm looking for a particular symbol or a file, there wasn't a really easy way to do that in Visual Studio before. What we've introduced is a new feature called Quick Search. I'm going to hit the key binding Control, comma. Quick Search is a window that works across all the languages. So C#, VB, C++. You'll see C++ come a little bit later. So not in your CTP build that you have. What it allows me to do, if I just go ahead and type, it'll aggregate all of those symbols, all the methods and types that I have. So let me say if I was going to look for just render text, I can easily find that render text method that I was looking at. If I couldn't quite remember what that was, or what that method was called, I can go ahead and just type text, and then again find render, and we'll treat every space character as a wildcard search for it. The other thing that I could do that we've built into Quick Search is it also has this concept of camel case search. So if I do RT, for instance,
that's awesome.
It'll go ahead and find the different things I'm looking at. Right now it's looking at region tag. So that's kind of a cool way that you can quickly find things and search for things as well.
Very cool.
The other benefit of Quick Search is some of you may recall this kind of special character window here, where if I, once typed in the caret here, this is the quick command window. It makes it a command window in Visual Studio. So the way I would have opened a file before is really use that as a command window and just go ahead and say edit open file to bring up the file command window. It's not available there. What Quick Search allows me to do, though, is rather than going to a different location, is I can do the same thing. So I can say, well, if I know I have a file called document map margin, I can easily see all the files actually also aggregated in Quick Search. That's a really quick way to stay in your editor but still jump to the things that you need to jump to. Okay. Another thing I want to show you here is we'll do a quick tour into the web. So another part of what we've been doing in the web projects is really bringing this idea of, again, the code-focused features. We want to allow you a quick way to write better code faster. And one of the painful points in writing script code when you're working HTML is you know the structure of the tag, but you always have to type every piece out. So what we have now in web is, let's go ahead and just type. We've brought the idea of code snippets that you're used to in C# and VB kind of deeply into the web project idea. So if I clicked on a script block, I'll just hit tab, tab. I can easily find that block for script. If I wanted to go ahead and add a controller, for instance, here I can just go ahead and type my JavaScript and get all full JavaScript IntelliSense as well. If I wanted to go outside of this place here, and I wanted to go ahead and say, let's add a heater control here. I can go ahead and see another snippet. So there's a whole range of market snippets that allow you to do things against, for instance, data-bound controls. If I wanted to add a repeater control, I could just hit tab, tab. And this is a code you generally would have written either by dragging over from the toolbox that you can easily now write in web using snippets to quickly build up and kind of take away all that tedious work of working with snippets. Let me move back to one more thing here. So let me jump over to, so just recall for a second that I was talking about a WPF-based editor. So I showed you the zoom in the editor. I was working on a project called a document map margin. And what this is a WPF extension in order to replace the scroll bar. So let me show you what happens when I use this. So let me jump over to another project here. Okay. And what I have here is I have it's a blackjack card game. So this is just my main constructor for that game itself. If I go ahead and use Quick Search, let me look for a specific one. So I'm looking, for instance, for an event handler, so I know it starts with click. I know that the naming convention starts that way. And I know I'm looking for the double down one, so that's a quick way I can just jump to the double down event handler here. If I go ahead and put my cursor on this game, another feature that we've introduced is a feature called highlight references. And the idea of highlight references is it allows you a way while you're working in code to quickly get that understanding of what that symbol is. So for instance, if I needed to see game, I can see it across the entire view here. So let me go ahead and close this one down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that document map margin extension I wrote for the WPF-based editor and show you how easy it is to get a new add-on into Visual Studio. Let me go ahead and take this document map margin, drop that into my components folder here. And now let me just go ahead and load up that instance of Visual Studio. So what this does is this uses the Manage Accessibility Framework, which is a new framework we have in WP in the new editor here, which is the way that we're loading extensions in Visual Studio. So what I've done is I've just dropped my DLLs into a components folder, and the MEF framework will look at that folder and load up the extensions and register the extensions that I need. So let me go ahead and load up Visual Studio again. I'll go back into this card game file. So remember, the feature we were looking at was that highlight references feature. It was great in that it got me a view inside my code editor. but I want to build an extension that takes me just one step further. Okay? So notice now that when I bring up Visual Studio, I actually have this new extension that replaces the right-hand side scroll bar. It gives me this quick thumbnail-like view of my code here. And if I go back into that same method I was looking at, so again, I'm just going to look for that double down click function. I'll do the same thing where I can click on game. And now you'll see that this extension really brings the power of highlight references to the entire file. I can see every place that this game is used. I can just use Control-Shift up and down to just jump to every reference if I wanted to find each piece of it. Again, that's Control-Shift up or down. So that's a quick way to stay in the editor, get the understanding I need, but I can bring up this extension to just jump to one-click navigation if I want to see different pieces of it. If you want your screen real estate back, I can go ahead and just click on it and just see all the references right there. But that's kind of how easy it is in the new, using Meth and the new WPF editor to just drop extensions to extend existing features that are in Visual Studio.
Very cool.
So that's kind of a whirlwind for what I have for you today.
Great. Well, thanks, Karen, a lot for the time showing us some of these new features. And until next time, Niners, we'll see you next time.